your opinion on is we looking at a artificial bubble right now in the marketplace due to trying to keep up the appearance that we're okay after COVID? Or do you think that this will pass and we'll go back to normal trends?
The question is, what is normal after this? I mean, I don't know.
Right.
Both from the economy and everyday life, but then also, I mean, the Federal Reserve is doing things that are just completely unprecedented that we've never seen before. We don't know how this is all going to play out. I mean, in theory, they can pull all this liquidity out of the system. I mean, they pumped in, trillions and trillions of dollars. You can pull it all out at some point, and interest rates, they call it normalize, go back up at some point. But I don't know when that
Right.
is or what that looks like. And I mean, there's going to be billionaires made off of it if you can figure out the right way to play it. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm firmly convinced that there will be more millionaires made in the next 10 years than ever before, and it doesn't even have to do with the fact that, there's the potential for runaway inflation. Like, even taking that out of the equation, there's so many ridiculous opportunities right now.
And it all comes back to whether or not you're an asset owner or you're going to be a saver or you're just a spender. I mean, asset owners, you talk about wealth inequality, that's what it is. I mean, you cut the line at people that own real estate, people that own stocks.
Right.
Those are the people that are the richest, the people that, the 40 something percent of people that don't own anything, don't have any real estate assets, don't have any financial securities. Those are the ones that are getting left behind. And I think the Federal Reserve has a lot to do with that. I mean, obviously that's going to happen anyways, but the liquidity pump that they've been doing, that's where I think it's been going. It's in the financial markets.
So, in relate to the more personal, I'm going to ask you a real straightforward question. What is money? It's interesting because everybody explains it a different way. We all have a slightly different.
It's been a long time since I've thought about that question, to be frank. Money is just some means of representing value, some form of, I don't know if I should say currency or not, but some piece of paper or digital number or something that can be used to represent value within an economy. That can represent value within an economy.
That's incredibly interesting because when you think about defining money, you think about it in a very how do I say, logical finance kind of way. When I think about money, the way that I describe it is it's more conceptual to me. To me, it's a means to an end through a social contract. That's the end of it. Is the only reason money exists is because you and I will find it very hard to value sheep and cattle at the same rate, except in the cases where we need those from each other. But we don't always same things, and that's not consistent. So to me, money exists as a neutral good that everyone needs for no reason. And because of that, everyone needs it for a reason.
And I, of course, have a totally different conceptualization of it.
So what's yours?
I'm actually interested.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating question to ask because everyone does have a slightly different answer. For me, it's sort of leaning on Mises and sort of leaning on the idea of it being invented to keep track of debt. And the way I think of it is sort of an IOU on human action. That's kind of the way I think of it.
Ooh.
Because money itself is useless until people are brought into the equation. It's an interesting thought. Okay, let's go somewhere else. I'm bouncing around today. I like to bounce sometimes.
Yeah, I
hope I'm not giving y'all whiplash.
No, we're good. We're in the parking lot learning how to drive right now. We're just,
right.
Around the light posts. Mom's yelling at me. One of the things that Dustin's videos that I watched was this idea of kind of just what we were talking about, the seashells on a beach. Hey, there's a limited amount of these, here, everyone take a few seashells and we'll use this as our currency. And then someone goes to another part of the island and finds a massive quantity of them that no one knows about, goes and buys all the hammer. And then you see the repercussion is that, well, now everything starts to get more expensive, right? You see the beginnings of inflation. Now, imagine what happens, and this is my belief right now, when the inverse happens, is that everyone finds the seashells and then just begins to hoard them. and things get cheaper and cheaper. In fact, at the beginning of quarantine, there's a few different research articles that came out last month. I'd have to find them, that talked about how within the first half month to a month, we actually saw inflation in reverse. We saw deflation in the economy because people were holding the wealth in fear. That's something we haven't seen in over like 100 years. And that's incredibly interesting, how you could devalue your currency in the good way, but it's still bad.
It's just because I think that happened to Germany as well.
Yes, if I believe so.
Quite a few decades ago.
Right. It's well, in American
think,
history, it was about 100 years ago, is what I meant to say.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think what you had is there's a concept known as the velocity of money. It's just how fast dollars are moving around through the economy, and everybody kind of freaked out all at once. Everything shut down. Economic activity kind of ground to a halt, and so that's what you saw, is that when the velocity of money goes down, then that's going to play against inflation.
Well, one of the things that article hit on was that the silent generation is still alive, and they had either lived through the Great Depression or had family members who were directly alive during it for their adulthood. So when they saw this happen, the article specifies like older people, like 80 plus, did not on average spend more than $100 that entire month, literally shut down their lives. That's incredible. And I think our generation will see something close. I think, those of us that are in our 20s, 30s, 40s now, in 50, 60 years, when something like this happens again, I wonder what the perception is going to be from our generations, having lived through a moment like this.
It's fascinating because I think every generation has their experience, and everybody relies on their experience. I mean, you see like the people that are on social media talking about real estate because they've made money in real estate. Had real estate blown up in the last 10 years, they wouldn't be out there pumping, telling everybody to go buy real estate.
Right.
I think Josh, you did a video on this not too long ago, right? Talking about different segments that had blown up, industrial age and things like that. Wasn't that you?
Let's see. I did one on like questioning how rich people think, of the idea of like sometimes maybe wealth isn't created the way we expect it is.
I saw somebody did a video about, and there you had the gold rush, and then you had the industrial age, and there's been these major events that basically spanned across the generation, and there's been generational opportunities to create wealth in a different asset class. And they were arguing for, I think it was Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies now, as being the one. But I think you're 100% right. I think your experience is what you rely on. Like you can make money in real estate. My parents had a couple of rental houses when I was growing up. I had to go work at those. I mean, I had to like paint the living rooms and clean up after the tenants moved out and completely destroyed the place. My parents didn't make any money off of them. It was an absolute nightmare. And I remember having to go to work there. And of course, I wasn't getting any benefit from it. And so I can't see myself, unless I've got like a really good management team, I don't see myself owning rental properties, even though I know people make millions of dollars that way.